Welcome to Secretly Sporty. I am your host, Sebastian Langdale, and I'm joined here with my co-creator, Austin Rackles. Hey, Austin.
Hey, Sebastian. How's it going?
It is good. You know, it's getting hotter, so I'm just trying to get my runs in a little bit earlier each time before I melt. But it's been fun trying to clock some more miles as I keep training for this race. How's your week going?
It's good. I actually visited a sort of sports medicine chiropractor yesterday for the first time. I was dealing with some shoulder pain, not from tennis actually, but from editing our podcast.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but you know, he's working on it. He pushed some things back into place. We're going for follow-up, gonna get some stretches. We're gonna knock this out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, editing, just like writing, can be a very physical activity. I'm thinking back to our Alison Bechdel episode, Early Days, when she talks about the toll that writing and illustrating can take on the body.
Yeah, and we got into sort of the pros of physical therapy in this conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. Our guest today, Greg Marshall, discovered at age 30 that he has cerebral palsy.
Yeah, so growing up, his parents just told him that he had tight tendons, and then he accidentally discovered at age 30 that he had been diagnosed with cerebral palsy as a baby, and they had never told him. And he wrote a memoir about this. It's called Leg, the story of the limb and the boy who grew from it.
Right.
I really enjoyed this memoir.
Yeah.
Greg's life growing up was pretty wild. I mean, his mom was a longtime cancer survivor. His dad was diagnosed with ALS when he was in college. But despite all that, this book is really funny.
Really funny, yeah.
You just love hanging out with his family. He has several siblings. And it's also really sophisticated from a craft point of view. I mean, one of the things he does is sort of weave together his experience of growing up disabled, even though he didn't know that he was disabled, with growing up queer and how those two interact with each other. That is a great book.
Yeah, it bears noting Greg Marshall is the husband of last week's guest, Lucas Schaefer.
Yeah, this is a really fun sort of expansion of our Secretly Sporty podcast universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's fun to see how they both really complement each other in terms of their approaches to exercise and writing and the ways that they differ.
Bears saying too that we're on a little bit of an Austin streak, or we have been for the last few episodes. Greg and Lucas are Austinites, and so was Lisa B. Thompson, our guest earlier in June.
Oh yeah.
We will exit Austin next week and go over to good old New York.
That little known town. Should we get into it?
Let's get into it. Here is Greg Marshall. Greg, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We like to start by asking about your most recent workout. Can you tell us what you did and how it went?
I did an hour-long Power Zone Matt Wilper's workout on the Peloton bike. I'm a big Pelotoner.
I actually haven't Pelotoned before. I mean, what is it that kind of keeps you coming back to Peloton?
I sort of describe it as like, it's kind of like going to the mall or going to a department store where it's just like well lit and happy and very basic, but in just the right way to kind of like bring you back to neutral.
Yeah.
You know, in like my writing life, everything has to be so nuanced. But when I'm riding that damn dumb bike to nowhere, I can just be a basic little Disney adult who is like so jazzed to, you know, get to have an adventure with my body.
So with Peloton, every time are you doing some kind of class or watching some kind of video, or do you ever just like do it and you're just like, I'm just going to do old school 20 minutes on the exercise bike?
I only do Power Zone classes, and they usually have to be 45 minutes or an hour. So I'm like really I'm so weird, Sebastian. And I think one reason I was so excited to talk to you is that because I'm disabled, I have cerebral palsy, I've never fit into any kind of metric or idea of fitness. You know, like when I read like an article of like, okay, you have to be able to lift yourself off the floor without using things to help you or blah, 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 blah. Like any idea of optimization, I already fail at. And I'm a relatively healthy 41-year-old.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, I kind of knew that I had to chart my own course with my body. So the paradox of this not fitting in anywhere and being very one of one and kind of on my own journey with it, is that I've also always considered myself an athlete. I get really into the gamification of it, even though like I didn't make my high school tennis team. I tried to join a gay swim team in my early 20s, and it was like a disgraceful experience. Like I was mortified. I thought that I was this good swimmer. I'm a terrible swimmer compared to able-bodied gay men. So it was
Mm.
being moved down. Like I started in like a middle lane for like the middle swimmers. Okay, I'm probably that. And then down to literally the lane that I ended up in was a man walking laps in a t-shirt. Like it was like the shallow end.
Mm.
It's like that's where you belong in this schema of athleticism. But I think that that freed me to kind of make it all about me.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to learn to manage what an aging body looks like with a disability.
Mm.
We had a baby who's now 15 months old, and like I've had to kind of dial back my exercise a little bit to preserve my strength for like caregiving. And so like I went back to physical therapy for the first time in 20 some years this past year to work on my hip flexors and for back pain and kind of general mobility.
Mhm.
And I was kind of to a point where I assumed that I needed a hip replacement, but it turned out all I needed to do was work on more lateral movement. I thought that was a really cool metaphor that I was so obsessed with pushing forward that I just
Mm.
needed to draw back and go a little bit side to side.
Yeah. I started doing physical therapy for hip and foot issues and whatnot. And it was something of a revelation. Just having someone give you exercises that are targeted for you and your specific problem, how useful that can be.
Well, and the other thing, of course, is that with physical therapy and kind of recovering from all of these leg surgeries and, just constantly needing mobility work, it was a really good entry point into exercise. It was kind of a little starter kit
Mm.
where it's like, okay, like, ride very slowly on the stationary bike or, yeah, walk backwards on the treadmill was like a really big one. And then kind of like taking that and making it a lot more fun and giving yourself more endorphins by pushing your body harder. So I think in that way, cerebral palsy has been a real gift athletically. And so, yeah,
Yeah, nice. I've just read Leg, which I just found so moving and also hilarious. And I was wondering if you could kind of give us your snapshot of the story that Leg tells.
absolutely. Thank you so much for reading it, by the way.
Of course.
So I was almost 30 years old when I was applying for private medical insurance for the first time in my life and discovered that I have cerebral palsy. And my parents growing up had always just told me I had tight tendons and
Mm.
left it at that. So even though I have always walked with a limp, and even though I had leg surgeries on my hamstrings and Achilles tendon going back from since basically the time I could walk, I never identified as a person with a disability. I just thought
Mm.
I had these pesky tight tendons. And so once I kind of had that revelation in hand, I started looking back at my childhood, at like my mom's cancer, at my dad's ALS. I have a little sister who's on the spectrum. Just everything about my family I was seeing from a kind of a queer disabled perspective. Oh, I'm also a gay man. So that's kind of the other component of the book.
Mhm.
And once I did that, all of these stories that were kind of pretty typical suburban coming of age stories took on this kind of radically new light.
Yeah.
My mom was a newspaper columnist for a very local kind of set of newspapers, and she would write about her own medical travails as a woman with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so I kind of saw from an early age how she was creating a narrative for herself. I guess I kind of internalized some of that. And so I don't know, I guess found a way to tell my own story, like whether it was a love of The Wizard of Oz and school musicals, or meeting a motivational speaker who came to my seventh grade class to talk about HIV/AIDS, or even
Mm.
in my own dating life, kind of centering disability and queerness and thinking of them as sources of intimacy rather than sources of tension. So, what did my own familiarity with physical therapy, how did that inform me being a caregiver for my dad, who was diagnosed with ALS when I was a senior in college? So,
Mm.
like when I moved home from college and cared for him, I was able to, provide a kind of solace to him and a kind of care that my siblings couldn't because I knew about, mobility issues or knew about how to stretch your legs if you're bedridden or things like that. Those things kind of opened up portals into seeing the body in different ways, I guess.
Nice. Well, how do you think about the craft of memoir? What's been useful for developing your own craft?
I'm not an intellectual. My parents are fantastic. My dad was in newspapers. My mom is a writer, but like they were not intellectuals in any way.
Mm.
We were People magazine readers. I like learned big words from Entertainment Weekly. I had one kind of writing mentor when I was in like ninth or 10th grade who was like, look, if you want to be a good writer, there is this like liberal rag called The New Yorker. You subscribe to it and then like try to read an article every week from it. And like, I subscribed. It was like the most radical thing. I was like, oh my God, like these articles are so long. They're so dense. It was right before the 2002 Winter Olympics. So I remember
Hmm.
like the first New Yorker article I finished was about the Winter Olympics and Utah and like Mormonism.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, Greg, like my hat is off to you. Like you finished an entire article. Like, holy shit. I don't know. So I think it just can be interesting to have more of a comedic approach or something and hopefully marrying comedy with craft.
Yeah.
So much of the of memoirs can just be they're just so shitty. They're just so poorly
Mm.
written. My basis here is like my mom does not have my book in her house, but on her coffee table prominently displayed is like Kim Kardashian's. I don't know if it's like a memoir or literally just like softcore porn. I'm not sure. I haven't opened it. I like don't really want to know. But yeah, so like that's the kind of book that I'm talking about. And so kind of saying how can we use like the tools of fiction like plot, structure, sentence, setting, and just the color of language to, how can we apply that to memoir
Mhm.
and make it an imaginative space and just a really big space that like where you're really like painting with all the colors of the rainbow or like for one of the chapters in the book that takes place in Croatia
Mhm.
called Sexy, and it's sort of about one of my first boyfriend kind of sexual experiences on the study abroad trip. I had just read Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. I think I'd read somewhere that he tries to never use the word I. I think he's sort of saying just to like focus outward
Mm.
and kind of never be like, I see a man in a red hat, but like the man's red hat fluttered in the wind, like that kind of thing. And so I just tried to do that. I just said, like, write this chapter kind of like Salman Rushdie style, just like really
Right.
big, like go really big with it.
Can you tell me about a little bit about how your relationship to fitness changed and the years immediately after discovering that you have cerebral palsy?
I mean, I think there was the initial aha moment where it felt really gratifying to have a term that kind of matched the magnitude of what I'd been through. Okay, this isn't just a tight tendon. You're not just complaining about nothing. You actually have a condition. It's like
Yeah.
when you're sick and you barf and you're like, okay, thank God I'm actually sick. Like, this is happening. This is real.
Mm.
This isn't in my head.
Yeah.
But then I think it made me more careful and more circumspect. Like,
Mm.
oh my God, like, will I injure myself? What am I capable of? I started to question myself a lot more, because I was sort of just like a sorority girl, how I would exercise. It was just like, go on the treadmill, run as fucking fast as you can, as hard as you can, and like when you're about to fall off or die, like, stop.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a neurologist, and I was sort of telling her the whole tale. And I said, well, like, what do you think? Kelsey is her name. Kelsey, should I keep running on the treadmill? Should I not? And she just said, you should just do what you're comfortable with. Listen to your body.
Mm.
And if you feel good running, then keep running.
Yeah.
The positive was I could really work on things like, okay, let's think about my balance more. Let's think
Mm.
more about, strength and building strength. I think it made me a better total athlete. And especially with the Peloton, thinking about okay, what's going to keep me from falling? What's going to keep me
Mm.
mobile? And so, I reintroduced stretching. And by the way, I will speak for all people with cerebral palsy on this. We all hate yoga so much. It's just terrible. It's the worst. Everyone else is fucking amazing at it and they look great and they're so zen about it.
Yeah.
Lucas, my husband, is like really down on kind of body optimization and he like thinks it's like really laughable and disgusting.
Yeah.
I kind of, as a disabled person, I'm sort of like, no, but I want to be optimized. Like, optimize me. It's going to look different. I want the good things for my body. I don't think it should just be for other people. I think it should be for me too.
Are there different types of exercise, like tennis playing, like swimming, like running, that you kind of identify with certain phases of your life?
Well, swimming would have been kind of my younger years. We would just always swim. And my sister was a really competitive swimmer. Then my brother was, a fairly competitive basketball player. And this was the era of John Stockton and Karl Malone in the Utah Jazz, where we were like, oh my God, like short, shrimpy white kids, like can totally make it in the NBA, right? I really believed that he was going to play in the NBA. It really was this like family of little jocks where I was kind of this gay misfit. And also, Utah is just aggressively ableist. So it's never enough to just like enjoy skiing. It's like you have to be like this expert skier who is like, taking a fucking helicopter to the top of the mountain and like almost dying every time. And where was I going with all this? So swimming would be my earlier years. And then tennis became such a fun sport when I was just a little bit older. And tennis was still to this day, kind of my only social experience I've had with sport, because it's always just been me against myself. But in tennis, I was like part of tennis classes and, I was on a tennis ladder. So I'd like compete against other kids and yeah, and then I think I got really into running. I used to run on the treadmill when I was a teenager into my 20s, and it was just a blast, but it was just too taxing on my body at a certain point. And this is really disgusting, but I got this like absolutely horrendous wart on my big toe. Because of my limp, I would wear through the sole of the toe of my right tennis shoe. It's like how Michelle Obama describes Barack Obama's like first car, where she's like, I looked down and there was road, like, and not car. So that was like my, yeah. So that was my shoe when I would run on the treadmill. And so I kind of had to dial back from that. And then that's when I transitioned to more like the elliptical and the rowing machine. And then finally the Peloton, my current obsession.
Just looking at the next phase of fitness in your life, what do you think that might look like for you?
Well, I know that exercise will always be a part of my life, almost to my detriment. Like Lucas has had to have conversations with me where he's like, like you're not a professional athlete, right? Like, that you should write first in the morning, not like exercise so hard that you like can't sit in a chair. Like you could make your whole day exercise, which is ridiculous. Like I'm a 41-year-old who needs to like make money and like be a person in the world. But it's like, well, a morning swim in the morning, like a Peloton workout in the afternoon. It's like, that's pretty much your entire day, right? Like, what else do you even need to do at that point?
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel this way about exercise, but I just feel like it is my most dependable friend. Unlike writing, if you show up to the bike or the mat or the gym or whatever, it will happen. The magic will happen. Writing is so finicky and fleeting and strange and mysterious and slippery. Like the other day, I literally wrote one letter. That was my output for the entire day. I wrote one letter. It was the letter T. And that was all that I produced in the entire day.
So if you took writing out of the picture, like what would that do to you?
Writing really does feel like my calling, and exercise is like my sexy little mistress on the side. So I think that, using that as the frame, I mean, I think that like writing is probably the most important thing to me in the world besides, besides family.
Right.
And I think we all need that undercurrent, that electricity of creativity in our lives, because then you're like a detective and everything you encounter in life is a puzzle piece that you're fitting into this, masterwork that you're piecing together. When I'm working, like anything I read is interesting. Anything I hear can be interesting. Oh, is that a phrase that I could use in my book or in my writing? Or, and when that's gone, the world does feel, I'll just put it this way. We went to the Cheesecake Factory with my mom, who visited this last weekend, and Cheesecake Factory is fun. It has its perks, but like you don't want to live at the Cheesecake Factory,
Yeah.
Just like 24/7 exercise would just be pure Cheesecake Factory all the time.
I know that I am fueled by, like, intellectually, but also physically on some level by my interest in a given project.
Yeah. Donna Tartt has this quote. I came across, the author of The Goldfinch, where she
Yeah.
was saying that reading is like, a wonderful pleasure, but writing is even better. Which, like, it was said with the true condescension of an award-winning novelist, where she's like, oh, just, write a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. I mean, that's even better than reading. But it is like such a profound pleasure to be occupied by your own dreams.
Right.
Like I regularly fall asleep to audiobooks, and I've tried to stop doing it lately just because I think it's kind of filling my subconscious with other people's work. And my brain needs moments to wander and kind of figure out what it's obsessed with. And maybe this is a good lesson from exercise. Just carve out space for myself, for my mind to be blank and to be not occupied with. I like that I'm just like basically describing meditation, but I'm like a white man. So I'll be like, I'll just describe this as though I invented it. It's like, babe, just go on the meditation app, okay? Like, that's what you're saying.
Can you think of a time when exercise brought you through an especially difficult period in your life?
Yeah. My husband Lucas had this like glorious experience at Duke where he was just like, he made like friends with his professors, and he's still like such good friends with so many kids he went to school with. And like, he did everything. He, was not like a king of the campus in an obnoxious way, but just like all of the little misfits like found each other, and he had this lovely experience. I made one friend in all of college. I didn't know I had cerebral palsy yet, but I was a kid who walked with a limp, and I was in the closet for most of my first year of college. And I was terribly bullied by all the other gay men on campus because they were so fast. I was from Utah. I did not grow up in any kind of a gay culture at all. Like, the only gay thing that I'd ever encountered was like The Hours, the Michael Cunningham film adaptation,
Yeah.
first novel and then film adaptation. And so I got there, didn't make a single friend, but I would go to the gym like 3 or 4 times a week, and it would often be on Saturday night or, like all the times when everyone else is drinking and socializing. I'm like describing an incel, basically. I was an incel at the time, probably by definition, but I would just march myself up to the gym, and there was a treadmill that looked out onto the ice flows of Lake Michigan, and I'd just like haul ass on this treadmill. It was the start of having a really internal life for me.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that, I'm wondering if you can think of a time when exercise kind of moved you to a really euphoric state.
I would say playing night tennis with my dad.
Oh, yeah,
in my
nice.
college years before he was diagnosed with ALS was a very, it was kind of channeling the spirits of the US Open. And so that would always be really fun. And I think what was different for me about those experiences with my dad is that oftentimes I don't enjoy exercise environments that are not controlled, just because like I'm like, if I fall, there's like, it's not just getting there, it's getting back. So yeah, with my dad it was fun because it was like being competitive with someone, but in like a super fun, it could be like feisty and silly and competitive, but it was like I didn't have to think, am I safe? And, my dad and I were actually pretty well matched at a certain time in our life. So he played with this like really old racket from the 80s. It was like literally probably like a Jimmy Connors era racket. I have no idea why we didn't like upgrade him to something. So anyway, that's my plug for tennis.
Greg, we like to end on a lightning round.
Okay.
Cardio or strength training?
Oh, cardio.
Protein shake or protein bar?
Protein shake.
This is a divisive one, but cottage cheese or Greek yogurt?
Ooh, Greek yogurt.
And do you generally eat or not eat before a workout?
I usually do eat before. and I eat after. I just never stop eating.
Do you have a favorite thing either to eat before a workout or as a post-workout snack?
Well, we've gotten really into protein shakes. This is like when I realize what a basic bitch I am. It's like all of your questions are like, yep, I'm doing that one too. I'm doing that one too.
What about sauna or cold plunge?
Sauna. I really don't like being cold. I'm also always sweating in Austin. Like, if you looked under the pits of this shirt right now, I'm sure like the pit stain would go like down to my waistline. So I like the idea of just being in an environment where you're like supposed to sweat. I'm like, wow, I'm doing really well at this. Like, I'm sweating. Awesome. Yeah.
Greg, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Oh my gosh. My friends call me like Rose from the Golden Girls because I'm like a very not a linear talker or thinker. So I appreciate you bearing with me.
No, this has been so fun. Thank you so much. Join us next time as we talk to Isaac Butler about his new book, The Perfect Moment, how Pilates became his obsession, and why you shouldn't write a 500-page book in a folding chair. See you then. Secretly Sporty was created and is produced by Sebastian Langdell and Austin Rackless. It's hosted by me, Sebastian Langdell, edited by Austin Rackless and Andy Rattinger. Our music is composed by Catherine Joy, cover art by Ben Wiseman, represented by Illustration Division, Inc. This outro song you're listening to right now is Bike to Nowhere by Pocket Radio. Special thanks to Liam Billingham. Please note that we are not medical professionals nor personal trainers. Not all exercises are suitable for everyone. Always consult a doctor before starting any new exercise routine or nutritional program. The views expressed in this show are those of the show's creators or the guests, and not those of any other entity or institution.